Hey everybody, hope you're having a great Dragon Con. My name is Michael French.
And I'm Tim Whitten, and we are
RetroBlasting, a YouTube channel that talks about Generation X's pop culture experience. And today we're going to be spending the next hour with you talking about G.I. Joe in animation in the 80s, the original Real American Hero animated series from Sunbow Marvel.
Is there anything other than the 80s? I mean, really?
No, there really isn't.
I agree.
Yeah. As you can see, we are big fans of the 80s G.I. Joe experience. We've set everything up especially just for you guys today to talk about G.I. Joe, the animated show. Now, the thing I wanted to start off with, Tim, was because everybody had a slightly different way into G.I. Joe back then. So I wanted to ask you, did you first experience G.I. Joe through the toys, the comics, or the cartoon?
Probably be the toys. As a young kid in the 80s, very early on in the 80s, my parents and I were shopping at Hills, if anybody remembers Hills department store, and we went down the toy aisle, and there was just this giant display of the original Joes.
Nice.
No equipment, no vehicles, just a couple of those plain green G.I. Joes, and my father, who used to criticize me for wanting toys, latched on to G.I. Joe because he was a military man himself. So he latched on, and he was more than happy to buy military toys for his son. So that was where I jumped in and started getting into Joe, which then I got really excited when the miniseries came out.
Oh, yeah. So the next thing for you was the animated series, the miniseries, which, for those of you who aren't aware, the first miniseries is officially titled G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, but we all know it casually now, and as fans, as the mass device, because that was the central MacGuffin of the plot. G.I. Joe actually started in animation as a series of mini-series. It did not start as a syndicated, afternoon show. It's unlike He-Man. G.I. Joe took two mini-series before it finally said, all right.
Hey, we got a thing here.
Yeah, we're willing to do this. So were you there watching the original Mass Device miniseries?
All I know is I wanted the big gun with the little magic crystals that made things happen.
Which they never made.
They never made. Which, really,
I know. You would think.
Look at, this is just a small fraction of the collection Michael has and RetroBlasting has. But yet, look at everything they made, but they didn't make the original miniseries.
There was a major disconnect between the animated show and the toy line, unlike many other toy lines back in the day. Because, we all know that the run-on joke about the 80s was, for the cynical, all those cartoons were just 20-minute toy commercials. Right. They were just 20-minute toy commercials. And I sit back and I go, if the G.I. Joe animated show was a toy commercial, it was a very bad one. If you take away toy commercial, it was a very good animated series. It was one of the best ones on TV. But if you're looking at it as advertising the latest toys,
it did not do a good job.
It did not do a good job. It was terrible.
Well, the toys always came out before they were ever in the cartoons.
Right.
It really was. And some of the best parts of the cartoon never made it to toys, like in the original miniseries, those giant Cobra robots, that look like half snake, half robot. Those things were amazing, and I was like, I want that toy. They never made that.
Never made it. They never made it. So. Yeah, a lot of people aren't aware that the comic book came out first because of the regulation in toys and children's advertising. Because G.I. Joe launched as a toy line in 1982, and it wasn't until 1983 that Ronald Reagan had deregulated children's television and allowed for cartoons that had tie-in toy lines. So G.I. Joe started with a little sleight of hand, the animated commercials for the comic books. Do you remember that? Find out in Marvel Comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's him. What's in store for G.I. Joe? Find out in Marvel Comics.
So they kind of got around it by saying, well, we're going to have a commercial for our comic. And it's a Marvel comic, and we'll animate these little interstitials to promote the comic. And then they also animated little segments at the beginning of the first toy commercials. So it was like, we'll fight for freedom. And then you see the animation of Flash shooting the laser.
Well, it was almost like He-Man, right? Because with the He-Man, they came with the mini comics.
Right.
And it was almost like He-Man, who came out like gangbusters, right?
Right.
And then G.I. Joe started to come out, and they were like, well, we can tie these to the comic books and send those. But then, like you said, later after the deregulation and then cartoons, all that started happening. So.
Yeah, it's strange. I feel like G.I. Joe the toy line was already a year out from the launch of the animated series, which started as those 2 miniseries specials, and I don't even remember.
They were cut up into like 4.
Yeah, it was like 4 parts for the first one, and then you had to wait almost a year for the next one, Revenge of Cobra, which was about the Weather Dominator, Destro's Weather Dominator.
Exploded into 3 parts and exotic parts of the world, and they all had to go and chase down their part.
Right, everybody had to get the part, and then Zartan gets the 3rd part, and he's going to hold it.
First time you see Zartan, where he breaks it out of the prison, gets Cobra Commander.
Yes, because was it Baroness breaks in there to get him or something like that?
Yeah, her and Zartan are dressed up, and then the Dreadnoughts come with their little buggies.
Yes, the little swamp skis or whatever. Yeah. But the thing about it was, the cartoon was, in toy line terms, a year. You're way behind. So the toy line was almost taking more cues from the comic book by Larry Hama than it was the cartoon. So a lot of people that I've run into over the years who've never read the comic, whether I've done a video or we're just talking at Dragon Con casually, they always say, why do you always talk about Snake Eyes and Scarlet? It was Duke and Scarlet. And it's like, well, no,
not really.
It was Duke and Scarlet in the cartoon, but in the actual comic book, it was always Snake Eyes and Scarlet because Duke didn't show up in the comic book until, 2 years in? Maybe at least a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was always interesting to me, the dramatic differences between the cartoon and the comic, because as a young man in the South, my grandfather was a minister at the time, and I'll never forget, I stayed with him, and one afternoon I'm on the couch watching G.I. Joe, and he comes in and he's like, what are you watching? And I was like, well, don't worry, Pop, just sit down and watch it for a minute. And he's like, they're shooting at each other, and I'm like, but nobody ever dies.
Right.
I mean, nobody ever dies. It's laser bolts that just kind of bounce around.
Yeah.
The bad guys are blue, the good guys are red. Just watch it. And he literally sat down and watched it for like 5 minutes. He got up and he was like, oh. And then just walked out of the room. And that was the only time I ever heard from him on how he felt about G.I. Joe.
Yeah, my parents, they just let me watch the miniseries when they came out. They were fine with it. And I do remember thinking it was odd because I was getting familiar with the comic through my next door neighbor. He was about a year and a half older than me, which was an eternity.
Oh, yeah.
Back then. And so he had some of the comics. They were like dog-eared copies. And I was seeing the Joes with their real weapons in the comic. But in the cartoon, they all carried the same...
That beige, weird rifle.
Yes, that khaki laser gun.
Yes.
Which, notably, for those of you that don't know, only Snow Job, you can see him right here on the table, only he came with the cartoon rifle in the toy line. He was the only figure that ever came with that rifle. But yeah, it was all in an attempt to appease the parents' groups at the time and make it, I'm actually shocked, quite honestly, that they didn't start out in the animated series with the robotic soldiers, because they eventually moved to it with the bats later on in the show.
And nobody ever felt bad about a robot getting blown in half that was mindless.
Right, which is why the Foot Soldiers and Ninja Turtles also became robots in the cartoon.
Yep.
But before that, they were still Cobra soldiers that were human, and the way they got around it, do you remember this? Every time an airplane blew up, there was a parachute that just miraculously
just showed up out of nowhere. It's almost like they just rolled out of it.
It's like you're sitting there going, that explosion looks pretty bad. I don't think, parachute. All right, well, I guess
he's okay.
He's all right. He made it out. So yeah, I've always had this kind of tug of war with the cartoon because it was what I experienced first after the toys, like yourself. But as I started to learn about the comic kept drawing me away. It was like,
it was the stark differences. Mm-hmm. In the comic book, they got shot.
Right.
There was blood. There was people dying.
Right.
And that's such a and it's so funny that isn't it weird that our dads would almost prefer us to buy comic books in the 80s?
Right.
And me and you would sit here and go, well, the comic book is so much more violent than the cartoon.
Yep.
But yet they would still rather you get the comic book than watch the TV show.
Yeah.
So do you think it was they just didn't realize that it was like that? Or is there some kind of fundamental difference that's beyond me? I don't know. I can't really speak to that.
I think they probably thought that the comic and the cartoon were on parity. And so they were like, it says G.I. Joe, all that branding is the same, so we're good.
Or was it because they bought comic books when they were kids?
That's probably part of it, too. They saw comics as a format, as a safe thing. And G.I. Joe wasn't like the original Ninja Turtles comic where, people were getting dismembered. But it was far more mature than the cartoon.
Yeah,
now, I know we're here for the cartoon, so we're going to dive in a little bit, talk about the cartoon itself. All right. Few weird things about the original miniseries that I want to point out. See if this was something that jumped out at you as well. One, Snake Eyes is in it, got no gloves on. He's got human hands. Like, he's human, but I mean, he's got bare hands.
Well, doesn't his outfit change color too?
His outfit does get irradiated at one point.
Well, but do you remember, like, I for some reason, and I'm going with your theory that our brains create content.
Right.
For some reason, I want to say in that miniseries, when he didn't have the gloves, his outfit was dark blue. Mm-hmm. But then by the end, he was all black.
Well, you might be correct because I think he changes his outfit at some point after the mountain man saves him from...
In the cabin?
Right, but I'm trying to remember if he changes back into the same clothes or not. I just know that it's very weird when he goes into the cave to try and get the red crystals or whatever.
He has the little silver container.
He's got that silver thermos or whatever it is. And the snake armors come out, those snake armors that are over there. They come out of the cave wall. They get trapped.
Or it turns.
Yeah. And Snake Eyes gets trapped behind this clear wall. And he and Scarlet do the whole Wrath of Khan thing where, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. No. And then you see the smoke and she's like, we'll never forget you. And then he's walking through the woods or through the snowy mountains or whatever, glowing red because he's all, He
gets his wolf.
He gets his wolf, right?
Timber.
Yes, and that was the thing about the mass device was that it was like 83, 84 when that came out. So we were almost to version 2 Snake Eyes in the toy line. We weren't quite there. I think we were 1 year away or something like that.
It was all him, and then those were always those golden ones. Snake Eyes was one of those golden,
Holy Grail.
Holy Grail, like Yoda in Star Wars. You would go and we would spend what seemed like hours just on the toy shelf going through all the cards, looking for Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow.
Which is so funny because he was the short-packed character back then along with Storm Shadow, and now those are the only 2 characters they make, which is so weird. It's like now they know, oh, you know what? Those guys were kind of popular. We should probably only make those. So we get through the mass device. Okay, the other thing I wanted to point out about the mass device before we move on. We have Stalker in the mass device for his one and only major cartoon appearance, which I found interesting.
Well, that's true. I never really thought about it, but I guess you're right. I'm trying to think. Did I remember seeing
that's the only... Yeah. He's in the whole miniseries, but it's the only animated miniseries he's really in. I mean...
Well, and it's kind of like your personal favorite that's only in really one real scene in all of G.I. Joe, Chuckles.
Well, that's in the movie.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, and he has no lines.
With the missile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the other issue with the animated series is because it was a year and change into the toy line, it was jumping ahead of many of the characters. Like the first miniseries had Duke in it, and Duke was the leader.
Right.
And,
no questions.
Yeah, and he and Snake Eyes both end up getting captured, and they're
in the arena.
And then they both get captured again in Revenge of Cobra off the top of that truck.
That's true. That's so true.
Am I getting that wrong?
No, I don't think so. I think you're absolutely right. I didn't think of that.
Or is Snake Eyes not with Duke in the first one?
No, it's them. It's both of them. Because remember, they have to fight in the arena, and they're given the net and the Poseidon fork to fight with.
But I thought that was is that not the second one where they're grabbed off the top of the truck when they're doing the Weather Dominator thing?
You got me doubting myself.
Okay, because these two miniseries really blend together.
Yes.
Yeah, they do. There's one where Snake Eyes and there's one. I know this is the first one where Duke is captured, and he's captured by Cobra both times. In both miniseries, he gets captured.
Okay.
In one, he has to fight that big guy, the big like Aztec looking dude.
Yeah.
And then in the next one,
I thought that was the same one though.
Well, I don't know because that they do have the headbands on that control them in that one. And then in the next one, he and Snake Eyes are captured together.
Yeah, there's one where they have to fight each other, and then there's one where they're teamed up.
Right.
Fighting.
Right.
The robots, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, maybe now it really is running together.
Yeah. So Duke was captured in both. Snake Eyes was definitely captured.
And I know
in the
you're
second.
Screaming at us right now. The audience is screaming. They're
you know what?
What in the world? How could you forget that?
Well, the thing about the animated series is the first 3 miniseries. There's the third miniseries that opens the regular show,
yes.
Pyramids of Darkness. All 3 of them have the same basic idea. Destro is trying to make a thing.
Take over the world.
And G.I. Joe is trying to stop him from making the thing. And they're all after the different parts to make the thing. And then G.I. Joe stops them from making the thing. I know that's a very glib way of putting it, but they followed a formula. Now,
well, they did up until the last season, right? I mean, that's...
You're talking about what that led into the movie?
Ooh.
Well,
wow.
by that point, the miniseries were over,
yes.
and we were going into just episode of the week. Although they did have a few multi-parters in there.
Yes.
Craziest thing that I remember from rewatching the series as an adult. Pyramids of Darkness. All right, we're past the Weather Dominator. We're into Pyramids of Darkness, and who do we meet in that miniseries? Shipwreck.
I was actually going to bring that up. Him and his desert skiff or whatever he has.
Yeah, his sand sail or whatever it is.
So here's a sailor. Full Navy gear with his white hat and everything.
Yep.
And he's at a bar in the middle of the desert.
Yes.
And did he ever officially become a Joe? Because apparently the qualifications to become a Joe by this point where you just got to be a weird guy.
Yeah.
Because he just magically becomes a Joe.
Can you see Can you see like the screening conversation that Flint and Duke are having where he's like, Flint's like, well, tell me, Duke, does he wear gloves with short sleeve shirts? Good. Excellent. Does he have eccentric clothing? Excellent. I think he's a Joe. Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
He just hops in a jet with
with his same outfit.
Yeah.
They never changed clothes.
Nope.
They were always they didn't have to have any pressure suits, helmets, nothing.
Yeah.
Except for the one episode where the Sky Strikers were fitted with booster rockets and they went to space. You remember that one, right? And then they skydived through the atmosphere and parachuted safely down to Earth.
It's something I didn't want to think about too much. But I will think about that more pleasantly than I will Shipwreck and Snake Eyes on stage having a break dance off.
Oh, I forgot
do you
about
remember that.
Yeah, the dog was dancing and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. I forgot about that one. Or when the Dreadnoughts were a band or a rock band.
Cold Slither.
Cold Slither.
Uh-huh.
Didn't somebody actually redo that and it was like pretty cool?
I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
I think there is. I think there's a video out there of Cold Slither on YouTube, and it was actually really done very well. I want to say it's out there right now.
They played the same like 4 lyrics
over and
every
over
time.
again.
It was like the shortest song in history. We're Cold Slither, you'll be joining us soon. A band of vipers playing our tune. And then something else. I don't even remember what it all was. But yeah, those were some of like the highlights of the early post miniseries seasons, because the one that
before He Who Shall Not Be Named became a major part of the series.
Say it.
I'm not. There's a reason he's not on the table. Or on the flag behind us.
Say it. Serpentor. You want to say Serpentor? I know you do.
I don't want to say Serpentor.
Well, we'll get to him. We'll get to him in a
that
moment.
Part in a minute. It's too early.
All right, but first, let's think about the good times.
Okay.
All right. Do you remember? I believe the episode is, and this is where they're going to light me up again. But I believe the episode is called Jungle Trap, and this was one of the few episodes that was written by Paul Dini, who worked on the Batman animated series later in his career. And this episode was where Recondo takes Duke, Scarlet, and Snake Eyes through the jungle to try and get to this Cobra objective, this sort of outpost.
It was an Aztec temple or something.
Yes, that they had repurposed.
Yep.
And I just remember on my watch through the show again, it's early on in the main series after the mini-series are done. It's just a few episodes into the main daily run. But it was so grounded. You know, that one episode didn't have, aside from the laser rifles, it didn't have a lot of crazy mysticism going on. Or you remember in Pyramids of Darkness, I believe it was, they're up in that space shuttle and those things turned from like big gizmos into gremlins.
Yeah.
And they're in this.
And it's like you never saw them again.
Never saw them again.
Going, wow, what a weapon. And then no.
Yeah, no, we're not. Even though the G.I. Joes barely won that one and we figured out why we lost, we're not going to attempt that.
We're not going to attempt it again.
We're just going to let that loophole go by. Yeah. Like, yeah, and I think they realized, we went a bridge too far with the giant gremlins. Jungle Trap, if you haven't seen it, it's such a great episode. It's one of my favorites of the entire G.I. Joe run. Check it out if you get a chance, because it really feels like the perfect marriage of what the toys were trying to represent and what the comic book was delivering on, but with that animated thing that we liked as well. It had all the best elements come together in one episode.
Well, and you know, G.I. Joe, period, the animation was always good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though there was some questionable scenes of things, I mean, the animation itself of the faces and everything else was always really good.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, compared to some other series that we won't talk about, but the animation was really good.
It was Marvel Sunbow. I mean, they were doing some great work back then. They did, I believe they did Dungeons and Dragons, which is one of the best. It's one of the best animated series ever.
Yes. Yes.
Now, some of the characters' personalities. We talked about Shipwreck.
I was waiting until we got here.
Okay, so some of the characters' personalities. Do you remember how they meet Quick Kick?
No, I don't. I was going to get on Cobra Commander because that's the part I can't wait to talk about.
Right. Well, Alpine and Bazooka. If you remember how they made Bazooka,
they were always buddies. They were always best friends.
Yes, and Bazooka was a really dumb. You know, his IQ was 40. So
swallowed my bubble gum.
So of course they gave him the rocket launcher because that's what you do.
The bazooka.
Yeah. They meet him on like an icy glacier. You know, it's just like with Shipwreck in the desert. None of these cute meets make sense at all. But Quick Kick's quirk was that he loved doing impressions of movie stars from the past.
That's right.
So he would always do like Bogey and Cagney and all those guys.
You bet your life, doll.
And yet, he never bothered to point out to the rest of the group that Shipwreck was just doing a bad Jack Nicholson impression.
I'd rather save yours.
As his own voice.
This is true.
You know, he was always like, yo, Joe. Hey, guys.
Hey, Lady J.
Yeah, hey, Lady J. Let's get in that dragonfly and yo, Joe.
We won't talk about the tension between Shipwreck and Flint over Lady J.
I don't think Lady J really had an eye for Shipwreck. I think she just didn't want to hurt his feelings.
I don't know. She entertained it a lot.
Well, she did because I think she had a lot of what do they call that now? Emotional intelligence.
There we go.
And she knew not to cause any waves.
Wow.
I know. I did that.
Deep.
It was
so deep.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I feel bad about it. I do. A little bit, not much.
So we got to get to Cobra Commander.
Yeah, we have to because we have to talk about Cobra Commander before we talk about Serpentor. All right.
Do we have to talk about him?
We don't.
No, we have to.
Let's talk about fan favorite Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander and Skeletor, both
brilliant.
They seem to age like fine wine.
They do.
They get funnier the older we get. You watch these shows, Skeletor and Cobra Commander are just the funniest dudes. What's your favorite memory of Cobra Commander?
It's the same one of yours. It's the episode where there's an AI taking over or whatever. They're stuck in the tubes. Mm-hmm. There's like a tube of Joes. There's Cobra Commander. And then there's like this random Cobra guy. And the computer's like, will you work? And Cobra Commander goes, say no. And then the guy's like, no. And then it's like, ah! ah! And he looks at Cobra Commander. He's like, will you work? And Cobra Commander's like, yes!
Yeah, I love that line. He's like, say no. I want to see what happens.
Say no. I want to see what happens.
It's so, I mean, I
It
don't.
is so demented.
It is,
It
but
really is.
do you think they knew when they were writing that at the time how well that would age?
I hope so. I
mean,
really, really hope so.
He makes the show worth watching now.
I mean, he does.
There's
He's
another
a great bad guy.
There's another line he has, and it's in the Serpentor run up because remember there was that time where he and Serpentor shared the screen for like half a season or whatever it was. Well, really,
he was always standing beside the throne, criticizing everybody.
Right, and they really were all the way through the movie. They were together until Cobra Commander got turned into a snake. There's one scene in one of the episodes where, Dr. Mindbender, Destro, Baroness, and Serpentor are all conspiring to overthrow Cobra Commander. And they've gotten to the point where they're not even trying to hide it, and they're basically just calling him out. And he says, I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact way he phrases it, but some of this is the word he uses. He says, he says, I can't believe that you all have such heinous disregard for my authority. And as an adult, I'm watching that going, I didn't know what the word heinous meant when I was a kid. There's no way. No. But it's so telling of...
Did he say harness? What?
Harness?
Harness?
What? I know what that means. Cobra Commander, he was... that proper line he walked of, I am villainous and I am insidious, but not so much that kids can't watch what I do. Because like Skeletor, I come up with these pretty awful plans. Like, if you actually took the comedy out of it, they're pretty, like, oh my God, like, I can't believe you're doing that. But then he always loses with style.
Yes.
It's, I don't know how to describe it any better.
Destro almost gets comedic. My dear Cobra Commander.
My dear Cobra Commander.
You're just like, where's this guy from?
Do you remember his first line to Cobra Commander in the very first miniseries?
I don't think so.
You're reminding me of it by bringing him up. So there's the Cobra Fortress right in the middle of nowhere. It always looks like
he's up on the cliff.
Yeah, and it's always at night and lightning.
Yes.
I don't know why it is.
Yeah, well,
And Destro comes up with this hood on. He looks like he's in like a cloak. You can't see his face. He has to go by these traps, that are guarding the door. And then he goes in, and then Cobra Commander's on his big throne, and he walks up and he undoes his hood, and you see Destro's head, and Cobra Commander says, "You're late!" And he says, "I wouldn't have been if you had picked he says, "I wouldn't be, except I was forced to come to this ridiculously melodramatic location."
Climbing to this ridiculously melodramatic location.
And I was like, as an adult, I'm sitting there watching it going, oh my gosh, they just called out their own show in the first 3 seconds. You got to salute that. I mean, you have to.
We all hope the best that they knew exactly what they were doing.
Right, right.
I mean,
I want to know that that's deliberate.
Yeah.
Now, I know that Hasbro was constantly trying to sell toys. And so every time they would switch seasons, you would have like a very soft cast change where you would still see the other characters in the background.
What do you mean? Flint has always been here.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
No, he hasn't. And it wasn't as bad as Transformers. Like Transformers was just...
Okay, but wait.
Okay.
But at least in Transformers, they did away. And like, boom, you're dead. Even though they got shot 1,000,000 times in the TV show.
Right.
One shot, they died. Now, in G.I. Joe, it was just like, people just disappeared. Just...
Oh yeah,
poof! They're
right.
gone,
They're gone. Like Flash was actually in one of the earliest episodes, the original
gone.
Flash, and then he's gone. Never seen him again.
Who was the radio guy?
Breaker. Yeah,
he's in there like a lot in the first couple, and then just gone.
Well, because they got Mainframe.
Right, Mainframe comes in. Oh.
Right. That was the deal with it. Was okay. First it was Duke, then Duke is sort of in the background, and Flint takes over. Then Flint kind of gets pushed to the background and Hawk takes over. Cobra Commander goes from Cobra Commander to Hooded Cobra Commander. Then it goes to Serpentor, who, by the way, I don't think I've ever
This I command.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a toy commercial more than Serpentor's. They
played that up.
They pushed that one so much.
His little
Introducing Serpentor, the ultimate Cobra Emperor.
flying.
Yes, his flying
Gold Cobra thing.
Which, by the way, you know that thing's really bad about shattering now.
Oh, well, it was a horrible toy.
Yeah, it was terrible. And it was because
the character was horrible.
Well, yeah. He was made from the DNA of like
all the worst of the worst leaders.
Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan. I could be butchering that. You know, Charlemagne. The thing about the cast changes though was that we did get the bats, which were the robotic soldiers.
Those were always great. I did think that was a good.
And it made the action a little more visceral. Better. Yeah.
You can see the Joes actually kick a head off a bat or rip their arm off and beat another one with it or something. Yeah, you know. And everybody was like, it's a machine. It's okay now.
Now, before we move into this season, because I just realized I almost forgot to bring this up, you should all know that according to the cartoon, if it is to be believed, Storm Shadow, the Cobra Ninja, is the rightful king of England. And that is because in one episode, he found Excalibur in the lake and fought G.I. Joe with it.
Yes.
Now, it was then taken from him again because G.I. Joe took it from him and threw it back in the water, which I don't really think is fair.
No.
Because he rightfully got it. I mean...
Well, you know, Lady of the Lake has it now, and where it rightfully belongs. Remember, she
But it belongs with the person who she's willing to give it to. And if she's willing to give it to Storm Shadow, then I think...
Did she give it to Storm Shadow, or did he pull it from the stone?
No. He found it in the lake. Like
Did he find? Okay.
Yeah, there was no stone to pull it from.
I remember that episode. So just for the audience, I have not rewatched the series in a while. I watched the miniseries, The Mass Device, The Weather Dominator, own them, love them, watch them.
Right.
But I have not gone back and watched the series. I'm speaking from memory from when I was 12 years old.
Right.
So forgive me on some of the
I've
details,
watched a number of these over the last, several months just because. And there is that episode where Storm Shadow becomes the rightful king of England. Yeah. And I just don't think it's very fair that they took the sword away from him.
I mean, if it was his sword, it's his sword.
I'm just saying.
And that was in a lot. It was all the the closing credits. They always show part.
They
of that
always
episode.
show him cut through that
tower, or whatever, and it falling.
Falling on, was it Quick Kick or Footloose? Might have been Footloose.
I can't remember.
G.I. Joe, and then the PSAs.
Yes.
Which we got to bring those up before we move on to the movie. So the PSAs, did you actually take those into account as a kid?
You want to know what's hilarious is I'm sitting here quoting episodes, and I can see them in my head. I remember the plots. I don't remember hardly any of the PSAs. I really don't. I mean...
All right, I'll jog your memory with some.
I know they were there. Now I know they were like, hey, kids. It was always a couple of kids playing with matches. Or
a lot of them have to do with kids setting themselves on fire.
Exactly. Fire was so big.
So, like, there's one where, kids are around a campfire, and a kid gets caught on fire because of the campfire, and Spirit just comes running out of the bushes.
And it had to be Spirit.
And Spirit just puts the kid out. And he's like, don't play with fire, And then there's the one where the kids are trying to cook themselves lunch in the kitchen, and it gets caught on fire, and Blowtorch, runs in there, and he helps them or whatever. Then there's the one where the kid's house gets caught on fire, and Barbecue comes through the window or something.
Yes, I remember Barbecue.
Try and get them out. There's the one where the kids find a downed power line, and I don't remember who it is who shows up to help them.
Wasn't that one Roadblock? I think that was Roadblock.
Yeah, he shows them to move it. Got to move it with a broom handle or a stick.
Nobody. You shouldn't touch it, kids. Let the professionals do it.
Yeah.
Never play around electrical wires, or you could be playing with fire.
And then there's the one that I just watched for a video I just did where the kids are trying to bully this other kid into graffitiing something, like with spray paint. And Flint, because the kid's like, no, I don't want to do that. And they're like, what are you, a wimp? And then Flint just comes stepping up out of the,
nowhere.
Out of stage left, and he's like, it's hard not to go with the crowd, isn't it?
It's hard not to follow the crowd, but sometimes that path is just a dead end.
He's like, yeah.
Okay, so are these Joes watching these children and waiting? I mean, That's a little creepy.
maybe it's like a spider.
They're like in the bushes watching. Just wait, they're gonna do something bad in a second.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like what?
Yeah, no, they're sitting there. It's probably like they have like a staggered schedule, where it's like, all right, Joes, you get like 4 days.
All right, barbecue, it's your turn.
Yeah, you get 4 days on active missions, and then you got 2 days where you got to go watch for kids being jerks.
Maybe that's where all of them left.
Yeah,
when they just disappeared from the series.
Yeah,
you're watching for the kids.
You're on bad kid duty. You got to go do the PSAs now. Like we'll get Hawk and Mainframe and Lowlight to take over duties here. You go watch for bad kids.
So bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
But I remember, those PSAs and the He-Man ones a lot.
I remember the He-Man ones though. Mm-hmm. That's the weird thing. As hard it is for me to remember. I remember seeing them. I remember hearing the voices. I just can't remember the message. But in He-Man, I usually can remember.
Yep.
But He-Man was a little darker.
Yeah.
Drugs are always bad, kids.
Well, that's because Lou Scheimer just like went in full. He was just like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm not going to dance around these issues. I'm just going to lay all the cards on the table. Whereas G.I. Joe was a little more, it's typical Hasbro. We're going to kind of dance around this and we're going to talk about some useful things, but we're not going to talk about the real things bothering kids. Like, how many kids did you know back in the 80s that were on an average day at risk of setting themselves on fire around a campsite? Like, I didn't know any. I could be wrong. I
mean, I did set my backyard on fire.
What did you say?
As a child.
Never mind.
I did
Never mind.
I did do that.
That PSA was for him.
But no Joe showed up to help me put the fire out. That was the local fire department. God bless them. That's a long story.
You've just answered my question.
Yeah, but it was really dumb. I did it in a really dumb way.
No, I'm just saying that you've totally validated why those PSAs existed, and
I was actually older when I did it though. It was more curiosity than anything.
That kind of fun can cost a life.
Barbecue!
I think that's what fire usually is at first.
I guarantee you 80% of our audience has done something similar.
Well,
and they're just sitting there laughing, going, "Yep, I've been there, done that."
Yep, I set my woods on fire.
I mean, it's happened to all of us. So,
all right, so we have to talk about the elephant in the room because I know we're running up on time.
Yep.
Elephant in the room is the transition to the movie. So for those of you that don't know, the Transformers and G.I. Joe toy lines, both owned by Hasbro, they were both running up against the need to flip the toy lines to bring new toys out into the market. And in a sort of ham-fisted way, they decided that the best way to do this was to make a Transformers movie and a G.I. Joe movie that wiped out, killed off, or rendered invalid all the original characters.
Yes.
The G.I. Joe one, from what I understand, they started first, but the Transformers one made it to theaters first. And the backlash against Optimus Prime's death was massive. The parents were ticked off, the kids were ticked off enough that the G.I. Joe movie, they quickly dubbed in lines to save Duke's life. Because Duke was killed by Serpentor in
that was rough. I mean, it was like right in the heart.
Right in the heart.
How the hell did he survive that?
Yeah, rather graphic way. And then what they decided to do was quick dub in lines that he's in a coma and then dub in a scene at the end where they say he's going to be okay. And even though they're all saying, yo, Joe, they're saying, yay, Duke's alive, which is really... So the G.I. Joe movie was put out on TV. It didn't even get a theatrical release in the U.S. I watched it on its broadcast.
I did too.
There is one saving grace for the movie, and it is not Chuckles. Do you know what it is?
Well, in your opinion.
In my opinion, right. Do you know what I'm going to say?
I don't know.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Okay, well, and that's interesting for you. I was going to say it had a kick-you-know-what opening.
Right. Oh, yeah. The opening's great.
One of the best openings.
Oh, the opening's awesome.
All those animated movies, I was like, wow, that looks really good. And then you actually watch the movie and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah. Cobra La.
And they were a civilization in the Ice Age, and I mean,
yeah, and they put the spores in Cobra Commander's face.
Yeah.
And because Cobra Commander
he was a scientist.
Yes.
And accident happened.
Right. And in the beginning of the movie, Cobra Commander ends up leading the Cobra troops. He defies Serpentor, and he leads them to this place for sanctuary, not realizing that the Cobra Law leaders hate his guts now. And they put the spores in his face, and he begins to turn into a snake man. And so we start to lose one of the best characters on G.I. Joe forever.
For a group of horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Scream at me all you want. They were just not good characters.
Globulus.
Oh, horrible.
What was the one guy called? Nemesis Enforcer?
Nemesis Enforcer. Okay, so you're a civilization that is millions of years older than humanity, but yet you name this guy Nemesis Enforcer.
Yeah.
And you all speak perfect English.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole time, Cobra Commander's on a blind roadblock saying, "I was once a man."
Stop saying that, you making me crazy.
And Roadblock's trying to get back to his unit
He's blinded.
because a bunch of the Joes were captured by the Cobra Law, and he's trying to get away. But you have Falcon, played by Don Johnson, which is that's a casting coup, I got to tell you.
Yeah, there's a few of those.
Yeah.
There's a few of those.
Yeah, so Falcon's played by Don Johnson, and he is this disciplinary problem. And so their resolution is they're going to send him off to boarding school, essentially, military boarding school, and they send him to Sergeant Slaughter to get retrained. Now, Sergeant Slaughter had already been in the Daily Show, the Daily series, for a while, and if I recall.
Give your hearts to America, Joes, because your butts belong to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. I don't remember.
Because I thought he was in the intro of the later seasons.
Well, I remember there was the big deal of getting him as a figure in the toy line. Right. He was a mail-off figure. Mm-hmm. He was a wrestler at the time. Right. Wrestling was big on all of our minds because of the characters. And all of a sudden, Sergeant Slaughter was a Joe, because it just kind of made sense.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, just like the fridge, there was card backs. You collect proofs of purchase.
Yep.
Send it off and get the character. But I thought it was the movie. And then after that, he becomes...
Well, no, because the movie was the last thing they did animated for G.I. Joe.
So he was in there.
From what I recall. I mean, I don't think there was anything past the movie for G.I. Joe except, as far as Sunbow Marvel's concerned, Deke took it over after that. But I don't know if Sergeant Slaughter was part of that because I never saw it. I never saw the Deke series.
I think you're right. I think absolutely, because I didn't watch the Deke series.
He's in the intro of the Daily series up until the movie. Like, you see him jump out of
his little tank.
Yeah, his triple T.
Yeah.
So Sergeant Slaughter starts whipping Falcon into shape, literally and figuratively.
The only way that's home is in a ditty bag.
Yeah,
Itty bitty
ditty bag. Remember Falcon like gets dropped off like 5 miles from his camp in the desert, and then he finally gets there and he's like, you know, is there something to eat? And he's like, you just missed dinner. Chow or whatever. He's like, you know, but you'll get breakfast tomorrow if you get up on time, you know, or something like that. And yeah, so Sergeant Slaughter's sitting there in the final moments fighting the Cobra Law, and he has the best moment in the whole film. Do you remember that where he's fighting Nemesis Enforcer?
He breaks his wing.
He breaks his wing, and he's like, this is for Duke. And he's like, this is for Falcon. He's like, this is for the good old US of A. This is for me. And he's just like haymakering him over and over.
Oh, yes, I do.
And
he's
then
hitting him in the mid. He's hitting him in mid or whatever.
And then he just grabs him. Then he grabs him and he's like,
You make me sick.
You make me sick. And then he just throws him into a bottomless pit.
Yes.
And as a kid, I'm sitting there going, you know, the rest of this 90-minute journey with all the commercials I've sat through hasn't been the greatest, but it was worth it for that moment alone. Like, that was just awesome. And I quoted that for years after that. I thought that was just the greatest thing.
It's a great, I mean, you know, except for that last season. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was the one cartoon, it was the one storyline I think we could all relate to.
Yes.
You know, it was more relatable than Masters of the Universe, than Transformers. And, you know...
Well, we had family members who might have been in the military, or friends, or friends' fathers or parents or whatever. And so you sit back and you go, as a kid, you're like, well, I'll never be Eternian. I'll never be a Jedi.
Right.
I'll never be... I'll never
be a giant robot that turns into a truck.
I'll never have a magic Rubik's Cube with a face. Like, I'll never have any of these things. I'll never be a kid that gets hot and turns into a sports car.
Right, yeah.
But I might be able
to... Or a werewolf.
A werewolf. But I might be able to one day maybe fly a helicopter or be, a special forces guy.
Yeah.
Or, they all had human limits. I mean, I know that they did amazing things. It was animation. But compared to everybody else in the 80s shows at the time, they were grounded. I mean, they were a grounded group of characters. So I just really love the way that they put the show together. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, they did a great job. The stories were good.
Yeah.
They were compelling. The characters, probably some of the best character development. Like,
right.
you even got origin stories.
Yeah.
You got them dealing with things that happen in their lives. And
yeah.
Just, you even got to see some of, like, when they went to Barbecue's house, which was an old fire station.
Yes. Yes, they got to meet Barbecue's family.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
Lady J goes to Scotland at one point, and she has that encounter in the old family home with, like, she thinks she's seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm remembering, it's there.
Shipwrecks gets painted up like he's old, and they're on the island with the entire town. That was a freaky one.
That one is probably one of the best G.I. Joe episodes ever.
When when he's holding Lady J, she's like melting in his hands because he thought he was
they're just
his
totally
wife, and you're like, oh my god.
They're totally messing with his head because they want him. That was one of the most Twilight Zone episodes ever, and I'm so glad you brought it up because I'd hate to have ended this panel without mentioning that one. That one and Jungle Trap are probably the two best.
Yes.
By far. There are a lot of fun ones.
It was uncomfortable.
That one was uncomfortable.
It was uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was like, you actually, if you've never seen it, you actually get to the point where you're like, is this really happening to him?
And then his buddies are after him to stop him, like he thinks he's got PTSD, and you're sitting here going, "This is a cartoon."
Yeah. Oh. No. Oh no.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, till you figure it out. So, well, I know we're running out of time.
We are running out of time, and I'm not sure how we can accurately end this thing. Time-wise, because this is such an odd format for Dragon Con, but I hope you guys have had fun watching this. I'm being told we have 3 minutes left, so that's probably the equivalent of going, stretch.
Well, I will say, us at RetroBlasting, it's not just me and Michael. I'm actually more crew than usually a panel
not
member.
anymore. Not after that Star Trek discussion. Not anymore.
But we have 2 other folks, Melinda Mock, we have Aaron Harper. We do live streams every Saturday.
Yep.
There you actually get to be interactive and ask us questions to what is this thing behind us, the amazing flag, and the decks that he's got. So please join us on RetroBlasting every Saturday for live streams. We have a lot of fun. It's not even necessarily formatted. It's just a lot of questions and answers. And,
it's a lot like this, but except you guys get to ask us questions in the chat as well, and we answer the questions as we go. And and I also do a number of fully finished videos on a regular basis. I just dropped one recently about Mask.
Amazing.
It's just a little aspect of Mask. We love everything from the Gen X experience. We call it everything from Jaws to Jurassic Park.
Yes.
And G.I. Joe definitely falls within that wheelhouse. But yeah, this has been a good talk.
It has, and we'll be may not be necessarily doing panels, but we usually go to Dragon Con just to visit and see fans. And,
yep.
Michael is definitely a popular guy there.
Oh,
he gets to see a lot of good folks. Some of you guys out there know us. We know you guys.
Yep.
We appreciate you taking time out to watch us, and I hope to see you more often.
Yeah, maybe next year, Dragon Con, like a lot of other things, we'll get back to normal and we'll all be in the same room again. But until then, we'll keep doing it with this format. So I hope this has been fun for you guys, and we will see you on the next Dragon Con.